Found out after I finished editing, there is a bit of an oopsie with Destiny right now, as there is 3 featured dungeons currently. As you can see right here, Spire of the Watcher, as well as Pit of Heresy, and right here listed as Prophecy. I'm not sure if it's associated with the fact that the Rite of the Nine bug happened right now, but there is currently 3 featured dungeons. I just listed Prophecy and Pit of Heresy, but be sure to include Spire of the Watcher in that list yourselves. Hello everyone, my name is the Mad Scorpion, and welcome to the launch day of Act 2 and the launch of Guardian Games in 2025. It's been a bit of a rough one, as if you've seen any of my other videos or looked in some tabs, Rite of the Nine accidentally launched, as well supposedly the servers were taken down for emergency maintenance, even before they said that, before I made this video, and I'm still currently on. However, we have a few things to get into. Now, I just honestly hope this year with Guardian Games, it doesn't look like it's supposed to be Hunter's turn to win, and they, decide to update the statue and Heir Apparent. Because Titans won last year, and Heir Apparent still had a Hunter badge, and the little statue was still the Golden Snake. Aside from that, getting into the world at large, we do have a double Nightfall rewards and rank booster for Vanguard. So if there was ever a time to grind out this week's Nightfall, I would say it's now. But that doesn't mean it's going to be an easy one, because per the usual, they paired up a pretty difficult one, and let's go over that right now. The Nightfall for double rewards and ranks is currently the PsyOps Battlegrounds Cosmodrome, which might have been one of the worst options in terms of quick farming. I know there's going to be many challenges or variety of basically just YouTube videos to say this is how you speedrun this in less than 10 minutes, but this is one of those ones that can be severely fickle, mainly because of the abundant amounts of Lucent Hive, as well as light bearers that show up, with the final boss as well being a Lucid Hive Knight, which means magic geometry bounces, and also when you're in the final fight, you have to deal with 3 different aspects of Savathûn, with random lightning strikes that reach even through buildings, and incredibly lethal volleys of arc fireballs. Yeah, there's basically a lot to deal with that can make this run end at any moment just because something happened that hit just a little bit too close. Aside from that, with the double loot, it is the perfect time if you are bold enough to farm out an adept version of the brand new Void rocket sidearm that hit the Nightfalls with the Lotus-Eater. Now, I know there were some people that were disappointed initially by the amount of perks it had. Personally, I don't know if I'll touch it just because I'm satisfied with my other rocket pistols, and just getting another one might not exactly be my flavor. However, as always, I will leave it to you whether or not you think this is worth farming out. I'm just telling you what is currently available at the moment. Crucible is a bit of a mixed bag of options right now, because there is the limited time Supremacy that is Guardian Games focused, which, if I remember correctly, does pit an entire team of one class against an entire team of another class. But in addition to that, there is quite a few different modes currently available, from the usual Rumble Free-For-All, the usual Comp Elimination and Showdown, and 6v6 Heaven Control, as well as Zone Control, and the fun Game of Mayhem, in case you want to do what Shaq says and just throw more grenades. Except if the grenades were super abilities. But with that, Trials will return this weekend as always, but keep in mind with the Supremacy mode, this is limited to Guardian Games, so if you wanted to work on it, you have the next weeks until April Fool's Day to work on it. No joke, Guardian Games ends on April Fool's Day, keep that in mind. For the weekly featured farming activities, off the rip, we have for the exotic mission probably one of the most missable ones in the Vox Obscura mission, mainly because its main reward of the Dead Messenger is probably the least, I would say, effective of all the variety craftable exotics that come from these exotic missions. Basically, it's just a wave frame that has 3 different waves that are shorter range than the average wave frame, and it can rotate elements, but nowadays with rotation elements only providing slight buffs and not really being needed for anti-shield stuff, it is really just living in Crucible, and if you want to be a Crucible cheeser, this is for you, but in terms of something compared to like Outbreak or Whisper, I'd say this is at the very bottom of the needed list. But, however, with Vox Obscura returning, there is the red borders that were available with Season of the Risen, which was basically just a Cabal set of weapons, some nifty ones. Thoughtless was quite a good sniper rifle. I remember the Pulse Rifle being a Crucible monster for a time. But just in case you needed to farm out anything red border from this season, this is pretty much where it's going to drop nowadays. So I'd recommend hitting that up in case you need some of those weapons. In terms of raids, we have two good ones for farming, one very thematic with the current episode, the first being King's Fall and the other being Garden of Salvation. With both of them, they are available for Redwater farming, and I would recommend getting them for anyone. Garden, in terms of its exotic, is quest-based, so I wouldn't say it's worth getting there. However, King's Fall and Touch of Malice is very much quest-based in terms of its catalyst, and I believe in terms of its exotic, but I believe the catalyst is only available during Master Mode, but I also forget entirely if it is or not, just because I did it once ages ago and don't remember it now. So, in the end, I would say the only difference is that King's Fall has a Master Mode that you can farm out and get adept weapons from, as well as armor farming from King's Fall, giving you recovery-focused armor, but aside from that, they all have red borders to farm, the main difference in theme being Hive and Vex in the end of the day. In terms of dungeons, we have both Prophecy and the Pit of Heresy, which Pit of Heresy is probably the least worth it in terms of farming. I would recommend only running it if you need the Pinnacle from it being the weekly featured. However, there is no exotic as a random drop, there is no Artifice armor from a Master difficulty dungeon, as well as the armor just itself not really being worth farming, and the weapons inside not exactly being exclusive. There are some nifty ones, and there are some limited edition ones, but nothing that really shakes up the meta or says, hey, this is worth getting. However, not the same can be said about Prophecy, because it was recently refreshed, and it does have access to a few fairly good weapons, in addition to Prophecy getting an update with Rite of the 9, hopefully soon in the future. But aside from that, there is also no exotic that's really focused to this one. I believe Ruinous Effigy was tied to Prophecy, and that is in the Monument to Lost Lights. And again, also no Master Mode for this one, so there is no Artifice armor farming this week, period, for dungeons, so that is a bit of an issue. And wrapping it up for the available raid challenge modes, going from bottom to top, we have for Last Wish, the Strength of Memory challenge. The Garden of Salvation, once again, is featured, so all challenges are active and infinitely farmable at that. The Deepstone Crypt is the Copies of Copies challenge, aka Atrax challenge, excuse me. With the Vault of Glass, it is the Wait For It challenge, aka Templar challenge. Vow of the Disciple is the Looting Catalyst, aka Rolk challenge. King's Fall, once again, being featured means all challenges are active and infinitely farmable. And lastly, the Root of Nightmares is Cosmic Equilibrium, as Crota's End is still bugged and not rewarding a challenge during the week. And lastly, Salvation's Edge is the Balanced Diet challenge for this raid. In terms of Salvation's Edge Master Mode, it is rewarding Resilience-focused armor for its Master Mode, as well as the Adepts it offers. In terms of our weekly challenges, we have first Rites of the Deep Part 1, which per the usual is basically just complete this week's story in association with Heresy. Then for the Heretical Arsenal, defeat combatants with bow, final blows, bonus progress in episode Heresy activities, or defeated Guardians. And this drops a nifty version of the Anamesis, is I believe how you say it, which is a new bow that just dropped with a specific origin trait unique to it. The Dreadnought Challengers is basically defeating challengers in the Court of Blades activity. I imagine that's just multiple rounds and rewards a Curio of the 9, which I imagine is going to be associated with the Rite of the 9 passage coming with Act 3. The Rune Stealer, which is basically in Court of Blades, spend runes to buy powerful armaments to aid your fire team in the battle. Basically, just self-explanatory, buy the upgrades to run through this activity. Then with Special Ammo Slayer, it is defeating combatants with special ammo. Bonus progress for spending runes on the following purchases during the activity, which is Dark Executioner, Paracausal Bandolier, and Vanguard Support. For Court of Blades enhancements, unlock runic enhancements for the Court of Blades activity at the Shaping Slab, which, if you don't know, with Act 2, there is a whole new set of runic enhancements that are separate from the ones that we had available with Act 1. Then there is the Absolutely Stunning, which is just stunning champions 50 times. You could farm out the same one over and over again if you so wish, just in case. For Void Focus, in any ritual activities, defeat targets with Void ability final blows with bonus progress for defeating Guardians and Void super final blows, so just kind of run the Nova Bomb and farm it. Then with Trials That Define Us, complete Crucible matches, bonus progress in Trials, and for victories. And with that is the end of the seasonal challenges, time to get into Eververse. As usual, when it comes to these events, just as a heads up, the Eververse store is not only expanded, but added some very limited edition event items. Then in terms of anything new, they are of course added, but they also added everything, or at least most of the things from previous years. So if there's any emotes, attacks, finishers, or otherwise ornaments that you want that were specific to this activity and event, I would recommend getting them as soon as possible, because while they may show up for Bright Dust, I imagine not everything will, so if there's something specific you would want, get it while you can with silver, otherwise risk losing out on it until the end of the year. With the main store, though, there is, of course, event-focused items in the Bright Dust store, starting with the Rivalry Black Sand, which is one of those ones that just kind of is a nice white and dark grayish granite look. There, I couldn't say white and black because that is more color than black. Next is Photo Finish, which is one of those unique ones because if you don't remember, I believe this is the one that has the RGB color rotation in its glows. My Titan doesn't have the glow to show it, but I believe this is one of those ones. But if you don't also remember, the RGB Rainbow Glow is available with the Guardian games. The Contender's entrance is a Transmat effect, Guardian Games style, which is basically just showing up to the Guardian Games logo. Then we also have the Beloved Antique from Guardian Games years past, which, unfortunately, when it comes to updates, the Sparrow doesn't show off often enough, so I'm going to go ahead and just give you a view of what it is right now. Then there is the Exercise Cycle emote, which is basically just you know, exercising on a exercise bike, but it is also one of those ones that just abruptly stop awkwardly. Next, into the main store with flares and transmats, we have, oh, that's the wrong one. We have first Verdant Chrome, which is back from the Revelry time, which is basically just a bit of an off dull green and gold. Back from the Revelry, as this is what replaced it. Also, Verdant Crown, basically same thing, a little bit of color inversion, but a little bit more shiny and metallic. Next, Rivalry White Sand to compete with Black Sand, although this one actually has more black than granite in its appearance, so, you know, color swap, I guess. And then the Up for Grabs, which is one of those obnoxiously bright ones in Guardian Games color. White, red, yellow undertone with only a little bit of blue. Then for our shaders and transmats, we have the Spring Fountain effects back from the Revelry that 1 year was around. The reflection effects from Season of Osiris, or Curse of Osiris, basically Osiris reflection effects. And then as well the AI Rasputin reboot, which is one of those ones that I think everyone still runs nowadays. And for some of our main items, we have the Represent emote, which I believe rotates depending on whichever class you actually represent. So this is not what it will be whatever class is actually holding it. The Lunar Shoes, which I imagine is just you bouncing with Moon Shoes, and I think the animation briefly not matching up with the animation. But then, you know, another just quick stop. Then the Free Throw emote, which is basically just what you can imagine. Sadly, there is no ball. You just kind of do that thing that every kid did in middle school for no reason. Then the Hoplite Shell, which is one of the cooler looking ghost shells. It fits in with the idea of gladiators, a nice Roman Greek? I forget which one, but a nice classic gladiator style mohawk, which otherwise is quite large looking, but still cool. Then the next is the Heinekos, I believe this is Greek, so I'm definitely going to mispronounce it, but this Sparrow right here, once again not loading, so I'll go ahead and give you a preview of what it looks like as a whole. Then lastly there is the Stygian Courser, which is one of the ones from an early year, so it is quite kind of bland, and just as a warning with anything Guardian Games that has the red, blue, and yellow, I'd recommend just keeping an eye out on it, because as you can see with these shaders, the shaders itself change, but the colors themselves don't, so it rarely will ever affect its color in a total. And actually, lastly, but definitely least, just another thing to say, it is Guardian Games in a ghost projection. And with that, it is the end of this reset update in Destiny 2. My name is the Mad Scorpion. I will see you in the next video.